You've waited all year, and it's finally here. Today's the day. Old Navy's famous $1 flip-flops are back for just one day only. Polish up your petties and hurry in for flip-flops for the whole family for just $1. Today only at Old Navy and OldNavy.com. Valid 6/24, limit 10, solid colors only.
Is there suddenly a Jets running back controversy? Why isn't the Devontae Parker train picking up more speed? And who would you rather draft, Tyler Eifert or Delaney Walker? Plus, 2017 Pros vs. Joe's competitor and $30,000 career winner Dan Thomas drops by to talk about his 6 Football Guys titles in 2016 and what trends he's noticed already in FFPC drafts this summer. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Thinking of a master plan. Cause ain't nothing but sweat inside my hands. So I dig into my pocket, all my money spent. So I get deeper, but still coming up with lint. So I start my mission, leave my residence. Thinking how could I get some dead presidents? I need money. I used to be a stick-up kid, so I think of all the devious things I did. 1, 2, 3, 4. I used to roll up, this is a hole up. Ain't nothing funny, stop smiling. You still don't nothing move but the money. But now I learned that.
Broadcast live and heard around the world. You are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
I don't like to dream about getting paid, so I dig into the books of the rhymes that I made.
Thank you, Rob, so much, and greetings and salutations to all the Balkaholics and Gerzak addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is the patron saint of fantasy football, Dave Gerzak, a.k.a. The Dizzle. Coming up on tonight's show, what do you make of the perceived Seattle running back workload split? Can Todd Gurley redeem himself in 2017? And Pros vs. Joe's drafter and $30,000 winner in the FFPC, Dan Thomas, shares his thoughts on Zero RB, his Pros vs. Joe's strategy this season, and much more. Shout out to the chat room right now. Post any questions you all might have in there if you want to connect with us on Twitter. The show is at HSFF Hour. I am at Eric Balkman, and Dave is at David Gerzak. You can post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/HSFF Hour. If you want to give us a buzz, 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVA. And, of course, our show email inbox is highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. Our producer and mutual friend Rob and our audio engineer Bryce are checking that email box, also checking the Twitter feed to make sure that all your tweets, emails, and more are answered in the fantasy feedback segment later on in the show. We'll get to it. I shouldn't say they're all going to be answered because we do get emails from time to time that we don't have time for on the show because sometimes Dave and I like to get into arguments over Laquan Treadwell and other different things that we differ on, and you never know what's going to happen. And tonight might be one of those nights, Dave. We don't know what we're going to get into tonight.
Yeah, I'm in a mood to argue. Let's go.
This is your last show.
Ever.
No, not ever, but this is your last show of June. You'll be off the next 2 weeks. So if you want to get into some, fist-flying arguments, you got to get your money's worth tonight, man.
Yeah, fisticuffs.
Fisticuffs.
No one ever uses that word.
I don't know what it means. I mean, I know what it means, but I don't know the origin of the word. Like fisticuffs. What does that mean? Like you're punching another guy's cuffs?
Getting into a fight.
Fist to cuffs?
Yeah,
or fist-tick cuffs?
Fisticuffs is one word.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what it means.
You know what it means.
I mean, I know what I guess I don't know the etymology of it, like how that developed. That's my problem with it.
You don't have to.
But you know what I mean? Like, oh, hey, how did they come up with that word fisticuffs? You don't know. Don't tell me you know because you don't.
I don't care. If I know what the word means, I don't need to know the root. I mean, this isn't a spelling bee.
No, I'm not trying to spell it because clearly I can't. Is the point?
From Latin?
Is it?
No, I don't know.
The Football Guys Players Championship is off and running, ladies and gentlemen. Remember to register for those leagues that are going off daily. We have some spots open in the 11:30 draft tonight, Dave, I believe. Is that correct? Or is it an 11 o'clock?
It's an 11:30.
It's an 11:30.
We have 11 spots left.
All right, so join whoever is joined up with that. That's starting shortly.
It's not going to fill. Don't worry.
You never know. Register your rooms at Planet Hollywood. Remember the great discounts that our friend Greg Sidoris has hooked up with the FFPC at Planet Hollywood this year. You won't find better discounted rates on the Strip at Planet Hollywood then, unless you're some sort of, insane Jay-Z type baller that basically gets comped no matter where he stays. We don't have those kind of rates, but we do have some great rates.
Did you say that our own Aunt Jemima, we sent him out there?
Yeah, Aunt Jemima is out there right now.
Yeah, we sent him. At the show, sent him to scout it out.
Yeah.
At Planet Hollywood.
He's our field reporter tonight.
He said make sure you get the ultra hip Fountain View room because they're newly remodeled.
Okay.
And they have a fridge.
Yeah.
They're not preloaded, of course, so you can
bring your own. Yep.
Yeah. So he's taking a break and he's going to go out and paint the casino.
He said it's very hot out there right now. His fridge is packed with water. Remember to hydrate when you're out there, too. Always very important.
That's so true.
Live high-stakes leagues will be taking place at the Planet Hollywood Resort and Casino in September. Remember to sign up for those at myffpc.com. Dynasty Startups, Draft Experts, Classics, Superflexes, Drafts, and more will be going on this weekend. I plan on commissioning a boatload of drafts. Hope to see you in the draft rooms this weekend, so hopefully you can register for a few drafts and draft some dominant squads this weekend. Thanks to Football Guys, Roto World, and Rob for tonight's rundown. Kicking things off, Bob Condata from the Seattle Times writes that he thinks the Seahawks could give Eddie Lacy and Thomas Rawls an equal share of the first and second down carries in 2017. Health and productivity will probably be the primary factors in who's getting the ball between Eddie Lacy and Thomas Rawls. Now, Eddie Lacy was paid like a starting running back this offseason as he moves from Green Bay to Seattle. If he's healthy, if he's at the weight, the mid-240s weight that Seattle wants him to be playing at, he probably will be the guy. But Thomas Rawls is a guy who's played into that backfield the last couple of years, having a significant role. And don't sleep on C.J. Prosise. And I shouldn't even say don't sleep on C.J. Prosise because it seems like that's the guy all the high-stakes guys are talking about anyway. Not just high-stakes guys, anybody in the industry. It seems like they're all about Prosise this year. We've talked about this before, Dave. I don't know if anything's changed for you. I have noticed Rawls fall in the ADP over the last 2 weeks. Until
this piece came out, now he'll probably move up.
He should move up, so he is the buy right now. Eddie Lacy is 705, C.J. Prosise 907. Rawls, the 1304 in FFPC drafts over the last 2 weeks. So you have to look at Rawls as the buy here in this scenario. And not that I want to, speak ill of my buddy Eddie Lacy, but man, Thomas Rawls on the 13th looks pretty attractive to me.
Yeah, if he doesn't move up too much, he's actually probably the only player that I would have a lot of interest in. I really, when you have three running backs, it's like you have none, kind of.
Right.
So are any of those? What are the chances that one of those three, if no one gets injured, that one of them is a top 12 back? Like zero.
I would also say that there's almost a 0% chance of none of them getting injured, knowing that. Yeah, honestly, like Lacy, Prosise, and Rawls.
That's probably true. So, but even if two of them are playing, it's unlikely. There's productivity there. I mean, it's a good offense. Offensive line's not that great, but I'm not that excited about it. I think there's some other sleeper types you can get in those middle rounds like that. Knowing
Prosise is the pass catcher of that offense, and knowing that you can get him in the 9th round, does that get you excited at all?
Not really.
Here's the guys that are going around him in the 9th round, running back wise: LeGarrette Blount, Duke Johnson, Jamal Charles.
I think Duke Johnson's a little more interesting.
I do too. And, honestly, LeGarrette Blount is kind of interesting to me, too.
Yeah, it could be.
So, again, in the 9th round, it's tough to go wrong.
They like Prosise so much that they went out and signed Eddie Lacy. That's what the team thinks of him.
Yeah, that's a good point. Excellent point.
Same thing with Rawls. It's like they really didn't think the running game was all that great. The offensive line was really the biggest issue, wasn't it?
Yeah. Offensive line was really bad. They have made some steps to fix that this year. I don't know if they have so much. But, again, none of these guys are going at a premium pick. Jeff Zurabek from the Baltimore Sun said he thinks that the Ravens are actually going to be using more 3 wide receiver sets this season. Last year, 58% of the time they used 3 wide receiver sets, and that mark should go up this year. Joe Flacco was 11th in the league last year with 429 passing attempts with 3 or more wide receivers on the field last year. maybe this is the obvious solution to the Ravens' tight end problem, losing Dennis Pitta in his 86 catches. Hey, we're just not going to put tight ends on the field. We're going to have Macklin, we're going to have Wallace, and we're going to have Perriman out there the whole time. Macklin, I thought his ADP would change a little bit, since he has been acquired by the Ravens, since being cut with the Chiefs. Really hasn't. Still going in the mid-9th. Mike Wallace still in the 11th round pick. Brashad Perriman going in the 12th round. So Perriman's actually moved up a little bit. I'm not too excited about Perriman. I still like Wallace in the 11th, and I could probably get on board with Macklin in the 9th round as like my 4th or 5th receiver.
Yeah, so you use Macklin in the slot. That's what we've been talking about.
Right, yeah.
I guess I'm still on board with Wallace more than anything else. I just think that he's shown some production. He's in the same system. He hasn't moved from another team with like Macklin has. They talked a little bit about Macklin possibly having lost a half step or lost a step.
He claimed that was what the Chiefs
talking crap on the way out. Or what?
Yeah, he claimed that's what the Chiefs said about him. Now, I don't know if they publicly come out and said that, but remember the guy.
But he said that he hasn't, of course.
Yeah, obviously. Listen, you could talk to Jerry Rice right now, and he would say he hasn't lost a step since 1985. Right. Jeremy Macklin, remember, for what it's worth, the guy who cut him is now been cut by the Chiefs as well. John Dorsey, out of a job. So I don't, know how much that played into it. But on the same day Andy Reid gets an extension, the guy who releases Jeremy Macklin is also released by the Chiefs organization.
I think, there's got to be more to that story. I'm surprised that nothing's come out.
Heard that he was butting heads with the owner, potentially. And also that, again, the scuttlebutt was that he took too long to try to get these long-term deals done with Justin Houston and Eric Berry. So,
the thing is, these guys got to remember, when you're talking to a billionaire, kiss his ass. It's not that hard. You're the GM. Wow, you run this organization, but keep in mind you don't own it. You are an employee of the main guy, of the billionaire. Be nice. You keep your job. It's not that hard.
Moving on, Dave, to some Jets talk here. This is from NJ Advanced Media's.
The weekly Jets talk.
Connor Hughes. Do we talk about the Jets every week? I don't know about that. But Connor Hughes actually expects Matt Forte to be the Jets' workhorse this season. Now, everything we've talked about on this show is that there is a changing of the guard, or changing of the jet, as it were. One is grounded and one is taking off, and we thought that jet taking off would be Bilal Powell. But apparently Connor Hughes thinks Forte could be the lead guy there. Hughes does not believe Powell will overtake Forte. He expects Powell to once again be the complement to Matt Forte. And when you look at the ADPs again, Dave, Powell at the 702, Matt Forte at the 808. Now, knowing what you know, reading this, I'm predicting here because this is the way I feel. You're still more likely to take Powell in the 7th round than Forte in the 8th.
Yeah, I am actually. I think Forte is way overaged, and Powell, I think, is just a better player at this point in his career.
We have to. This is again a slower time of the season in the NFL, and we have to look at a lot of these beat writers are, looking for storylines, looking for stuff to write about. And now I'm not saying that this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, but an easy way to get clicks, an easy way to get reads, an easy way to get reports. Or people talking about your article, say, hey, I'm going to take the contrarian view here because there's really nothing to go on, except for my own speculation. And look, we're talking about it on a nationally syndicated high-stakes fantasy football podcast.
Yeah, I know. Giving this guy some press.
Yeah, exactly. This is a classic case of needing to read between the lines and the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. Bilal Powell, much younger, much less tread on the tires. He is the guy you would want over Forte, despite this report.
Well, to play devil's advocate, though, Forte in the past has been a pedigreed, awesome running back. He's had massive years, and so let's say he gets the fountain of youth going. There's a chance that he actually is awesome. I just there's that possibility.
You could say the same thing that you just said about Jamal Charles and Adrian Peterson as well.
You could, although Peterson has, he has Ingram to contend with, who's a running back that's in his prime. That whole acquisition is kind of inexplicable to me, I guess.
But, but couldn't you say that Powell is in his prime right now too?
Yeah, I guess so.
He's not as pedigreed as Ingram, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that is a good devil's advocate. I appreciate the Dizzle playing the devil.
Yeah, you got to give that other view a little bit. I don't actually necessarily believe in it.
I know you don't, but we do need the DA on this show every so often. Bob Labriola from Steelers.com says he cannot imagine a realistic scenario in which Le'Veon Bell holds out into the season. He has not signed his franchise tender.
He needs that weed money.
Yeah. Well, when he does sign his franchise tag, he'll be owed more than $12 million. That's more than that's $6 million more than any other running back is going to receive in base salary alone this year. Even if he doesn't get the long-term deal before July 17th, which, by the way, my father's birthday and the day after Game of Thrones premieres, Le'Veon Bell is not probably going to leave that money on the table, as you mentioned, because you got to get that weed money. So
now, I mean, that's a lot of money
that's
for a running back.
Ton of cash.
For a running back, that's a ton.
And compare
Why
that.
didn't sign the long-term
nobody else in the NFL, no other running back in the NFL is getting $6 million in base salary this year. Le'Veon Bell could get 12.
Honestly, okay, so
that's insane.
It is.
Yeah.
So here's my advice. I mean, so you sign the franchise tender for $12 million. You take out a Lloyd's of London insurance policy or whatever if you tear your ACL.
Do NFL players do that? I thought they
can. I mean,
okay.
You know, they'll write insurance for anything if you're willing to pay the sucky premium. But I mean, so instead of even signing the long-term deal, just hope you don't tear your ACL, and if you do, you get paid off. But he's still young enough and in his prime that even if he did tear it or whatever, had this huge issue, he still is fine. You know, he can recover from that and he'll be okay. You know, I just don't. And, you know, so
but he has had a lot of, several knee issues over the last 3 years.
Right, but not totally like. Well, I mean, I guess, but. Let's say if he was to sign a 4-year deal, the last 2 years of those deals, 2 years are crap anyway. So I don't know. I just don't think this is such a bad thing.
The reason I bring it up, far be it for me to bring up contract talks in June, because again, let's talk about it when they become real. They're not real right now. Does this, and I don't even know how you feel about this. You told me a couple of months ago, and I forgot. Does this give you the tiebreaker if you have the 101 pick between David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell? I mean, does this make Johnson the 101 for you?
No, it's not. It does not make Johnson the 101 for this particular reason. I would have him as the 101. I would have him as 101 anyway. Okay. But not because of this.
Okay, fair enough. Moving on, we do have Dan Thomas coming up in just a couple minutes here. Last thing I want to bring up is our weekly Devontae Parker talk, and we're actually going to talk to Dan about Devontae Parker as well. But I thought this is interesting that the beat writer for ESPN for the Dolphins, James Walker, he actually projects Devontae Parker having a 70 catch for 980-yard and 7 touchdown season. He projects Jarvis Landry 90, 11, 10, and 5 touchdowns, and Kenny Stills actually taking a pretty big dip in stats, projected stats for this year compared to last year. Devontae Parker still going at the 709. The hype train has been going crazy for Devontae Parker the last 2 months. People, Parker, he's going to be great. He's going to be great. He's going to have this massive season. And yet FFPC drafters are still not taking him until the back end of the 7th round. Why is that? Are they just not buying the hype? Is this not real? Does nobody believe that this Parker breakout is going to be real?
Well, what has he really done in the NFL?
Not too much. But again, the reason that people are hyping him up is because we're hearing these glowing reports from, the team, obviously. But the beat writers are saying a lot of good stuff about him, saying that he's been asking more questions on the field, trying to understand the playbook, that this guy was not dedicated. Listen, he was a young guy in his 20s. You were in your 20s, and you probably did.
At one point,
and you probably in your early 20s, you probably didn't care about a lot of stuff that you should have.
Yeah, you're probably
or not cared enough. That's
right.
Devontae Parker.
I was not very professional at the time.
Maybe this is the year the light turns on. At least this is what we're being shoved down our throats, and we read about Devontae Parker on the internets. So you look at Parker right now, only going in the 7th round. Are FFPC players being smart about this and letting him slip there?
No, you make good points. So a lot of times you get these projected breakout guys, and they're going in the 4th and 5th rounds. So it's not bad. Late 7th round like that. And I actually give Mr. Walker credit. Those projections are pretty reasonable. 70 for 980 and 7 touchdowns. There's nothing out of line at all with those numbers. And what would that be, Balky? What do you think? So 170. So like probably like a late, low end WR2 or something like that.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
For 7th round.
And there is a chance that he totally breaks out. There's a chance he could be a top 12 receiver. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but there's a chance he has like 90 catches for 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns if he totally breaks out. He is a pedigree player. He's got the size. It's possible.
You like Ryan Tannehill throwing to him this year, or would you rather see the Dolphins sign Colin Kaepernick and have him throw to him?
Don't even ask that.
All right, fine. We'll move on.
Colin Kaepernick.
All right, moving on.
They're not going to sign him.
No more Colin Kaepernick talk for the rest of the show. That's not a promise. That's just a projection. I'm Eric Balkman. He's Dave Gerzak. We have $30,000 FFPC winner Dan Thomas talking about pros versus Joes and much more coming up right after this on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I am Eric Balkman. He is the Dizzle, the patron saint of fantasy football, Dave Gerzak. I want to introduce everybody to tonight's guest. He is his first fantasy high stakes league was back in 2006 when he played in the NFFC. Played there through the 2013 season. Also played 1 year in the WCOF League and won, but unfortunately it was the year that the WCOF folded.
Why do you even bring that up?
Got a little burnt out from high stakes. Didn't play it for a few years. Only drafted online last year and this year due to schedule, but hopes, and we hope, that he will be back in Las Vegas next year. Please welcome $30,000 winner in his FFPC career and a 2017 Pros vs. Joe drafter, Dan Thomas. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, Dan.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing very well. Exciting to have you on.
Hey, before you ask the first
question. Go ahead.
Before you ask the first question, can I guess before he says anything?
Go ahead.
It has something to do with painting.
Okay. Dan, when you're not playing fantasy football, what are you doing for a living?
I'm a painting contractor in Orlando.
Yeah, all right, I got it right.
That's why they call him the Dizzle. He's always right about stuff
like
like
that. His
that.
email says paint.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I cheated.
Yeah. What's that like? Painting in Orlando? That's listen.
Does it dry during this time of year with the humidity, or does it just wash off the houses?
Actually, most of our, we have a difficult time with it mainly because we work in the theme parks here in Orlando, so we're working at night.
Really? Dan, by the way, I'm going to be...
my guys are literally out there with dryers, drying paint.
Oh, that's
before
awesome.
the dew falls,
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm actually going to be in Disney World in a week, so I'll look for some of your masterpieces.
Yeah.
Did you guys do something on the Avatar thing that they're opening in Disney World? Are they open?
We didn't have anything to do with Avatar. We mainly work with the engineering groups for the maintenance,
Yeah, I'm sure there's
stuff.
Like a ton of maintenance, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Dan, it's got to be it's got to be exciting for you to after taking some time off from high stakes to get back into it like you did last year after being burnt out from everything that was going on. But as you came back last year, was there anything different for you, or did you just fall into your normal nothing's changed, this is like riding a bike, I'm back in it and I'm loving it more than I ever have?
Yeah, I think I actually appreciated it more. I missed the high stakes. I was still playing. I played the football guys tournament. For the time that I wasn't playing high stakes. So it wasn't new. It wasn't like coming back to something new or going back, doing something new. I was still doing it. Still enjoy it. I love football. Loved football since I was a little kid. I don't remember not liking football.
So let me ask you a question. So do you live in Orlando, I assume? So are you a fan of like the Buccaneers or the Dolphins? Or are you a fan of another team, or not really a fan of any team?
I'm a Dolphins fan. Used to have season tickets. It was just too much traveling. But yeah, I'm a Dolphins fan.
So we were just talking about Devontae Parker. What do you think of reporter James Walker's projection and Balky's thoughts on him being undervalued at
70 catches, 980 yards, and what was it? 6 touchdowns, Dave?
Yeah,
5 touchdowns? Seven. Yeah. What do you think about that?
I saw that. I think he's got an enormous amount of talent, but I'm not really a Tannehill fan, and I'm not sure he's going to be better after his injury than he was before his injury. So I don't know. I'm drafting him if he's gets him 7th or 8th round, because I do think he's got great potential. He's a hell of an athlete.
I'm curious, Dan, because you've been a Dolphins fan for many years, and you've read these beat writers and you've listened to these coaches. How does this the preseason stuff we're hearing on Parker? I mean, is this just fluff? I mean, is there something to it? It sounds like you're not getting overly excited based on what you're hearing right now.
I'm not getting overly excited because I've been a Dolphins fan for so long. But no, what they're saying about Parker, it's really odd that they're talking them up the way they are. You know, I mean, they'll say good things about players, but this guy, you know, every time you read about the Dolphins, they're talking about Parker.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is. That's good. It's good to hear it from the Dolphins' mouth, as it were.
So Andrew Luck's going to supposedly be healthy at the start of your training camp. We'll see. Maybe he'll have his face shaved nicely. And supposed to have an elite offense. T.Y. Hilton behind him there. He's going to be great. Do you have a favorite guy other than I just mentioned T.Y. Hilton? Anyone that you're really drafting, whether it's Luck or Hilton or anybody else that you've been getting on the Colts?
I've drafted Doyle some. I think he's starting to go too high. I like Doyle's situation there, but he's starting to go pretty high. You know, like he's a top 6 or 7 tight end. I don't know that I'm drafting him that high.
Wow.
Yeah, Doyle.
And
I
Go ahead.
Talk about Gore for us.
I'm not touching Gore. He's just getting too old. I have drafted the rookie Marlon Mack. I've drafted him a few times. You know, 13th, 14th round, I think.
Yeah, Mack's a little bit of an exciting guy this year. Doyle's interesting too because Dan, you're right. He has been creeping up in drafts right now. Dave, you don't know where he's going. Take a guess at where Jack Doyle's going in FFPC drafts right now.
6 or 7.
708 for Jack Doyle right now.
7th tight end overall?
No, he's not that. He's not that.
708 though. Okay.
But I mean, he's going like a fringe top 12 guy. And he has been creeping up quite a bit. What about I'm just curious, you know, playing in the FFPC with, you know, and trying to get that you know, high upside third tight end. Have you gotten any shares of Eric Swope? I mean, is this a guy who actually could make a pretty big impact with Doyle this year, or do you think Doyle is actually the tight end to own there in Indy, given where he's going?
I've drafted Swope in a couple of leagues, I think, but later, you know, like 15th round or so. But yeah, I think he's got potential, even with Doyle healthy. But if Doyle misses some time, he could have huge games during the season. But I mean, Indy's always had 2 tight ends, you know.
Jack Doyle and Eric Swope.
Yeah, they're the new
4-letter first name and 5-letter last name.
They're the new Fleener and Allen.
That's the funny
Dave.
thing about football, you know, that every year when I draft the first few teams I draft, I look at the teams and they look so weird to me because the players just don't look right.
I hear you. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, listen, Dan. When you had when you looked at some of these football guys' teams last year, you probably thought a lot of the similar thoughts that you're having now. But 6 of those football guys' teams ended up paying out pretty good last year, getting titles in 6 of them, and $15,000 along with a lot of second place finishes as well is what you cash in that contest. Congrats to you on that. And one of the things I always like to ask the owners and the players that come on this show who do draft multiple FPC teams, do you find yourself gravitating to the same players in a lot of these drafts that you end up, you know, hitting on a few guys and then you win a lot of drafts because of it, or win a lot of leagues because of it? Or do you find yourself building very different teams, but equally successful, and that's how you end up winning? How did these teams look to you last year?
I think I was pretty random in who I was drafting. I must have had McCoy higher than a lot of people because I ended up with McCoy on quite a few teams. But the guys that I had on most teams, probably I was winning in spite of them. Like Michael Floyd and John Brown, I was pretty high on both those guys last year. I had them in a lot of teams, and neither one of them did anything.
Balky, you were a big
listen, yeah, Floyd's a little bit of a he was like the Fleener of receivers for me last year. Just I was high on him too, and it didn't work out, and it certainly doesn't look like it's working out for him in Minnesota. Shady's a guy too. Shady's another guy that's creeping up. He was like going, you know, I would say like 8th or 9th overall in FFPC drafts. Now I'm seeing him creep into like sometimes 5th overall, 6th overall in drafts. So I think that people are sort of getting on the Shady bandwagon again this year, Dan.
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, probably going higher than I'm going to draft him right now, but he could have another big year, you know. He's a running back. I like some other running backs better.
So speaking of other running backs, let's talk about Marshawn Lynch. He's a polarizing player. And how likely is it, do you think, that he actually comes back, his back is fine, and he actually finishes in the top 10 running backs this season?
I think there's a good chance of that. I mean, he's going to lead probably the team in touchdowns. But if as long as he's healthy, I think he's got a good chance of that.
When you think about it, it's like, yeah, what's the only thing that could hold Lynch back, right? Is just the health.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you'd think with a year off he'd be rested, although he's another year older. But he was running pretty good when he left. Yeah.
It always comes down to, would you rather be rested or rusted? And so we'll have to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, when he walked away from it, he was a good running back.
Yeah, he was looking good, and honestly, his stats weren't that great. But we already talked about how bad Seattle's offensive line was his last year there too. And it's not like and I know there's people out there that love Washington and Jalen Richard on that Oakland team. And that's fine, but I just don't see them being serious threats as long as Lynch is.
Those guys are chumps.
I mean, they're Jags guy, just a guy, essentially is what they are. So, I think there's a lot going for Marshawn Lynch this year to have a good season. You've, of course, we're talking with Dan Thomas, $30,000 FFPC career winner, drafting in the Pros versus Joes competition that we have going on at the end of July. Coming up, that'll be exciting to see you draft in that, Dan. And you've already drafted a trio of football guys teams this season in preparation for PVJ. Tell us a little bit about some of the advantages that you feel, selecting players so early, including, doing drafts the day the Football Guys Players Championship opens.
I don't know there's any advantage other than just, being used to drafting. I mean, it's just, like I said earlier, the teams that I'm drafting right now, I look at them after I've drafted the team, and I just don't like them. But I was that way last year, and I won, I won with several of them. So, it's just preparation, being ready to make your pick when it comes to you.
Well, the problem, Dan, is that all the guys that you got in the 7th, 10th, 15th rounds last year, they're all getting picked in the top 24 picks now. So
yeah, they are.
That's why you won last year. So now you have to pick those same guys in the later rounds this year.
Or maybe take the guys that went in the early rounds last year that had bad seasons, and now you can get those guys at a discount.
Michael Floyd.
Yeah, Kobe Fleener.
There you go.
Basically, Eddie Lacy. Anybody I talked up on this show last year.
That's the thing about football. You never know who it's going to be. I mean, there are free agents that are going to be available in their first free agency in September for the leagues that I've drafted now. That it's going to look stupid that they're on the free, on the waiver wire, but
that's the way it goes a lot of times in these on these these early football guys teams.
At least you have the early waivers.
Yeah,
nice. We added that because we didn't have it for a long time.
It was another genius decision by the Dizzle and the prognosticator on this.
Just bad planning, and then you fix it.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of like this show, which is what we're going to do right now.
When are we getting to the fixing?
We're fixing it right now. We got to get to a break here. We have much more coming up with Dan Thomas, Pros versus Joe's contestant this year, won $30,000 in his FFPC career. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Eric Balkman, Dave Gerzak, Dan Thomas. Coming up, more on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. My name is Eric Balkman. I am your slightly above average host on this thrill ride we call the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I am co-hosting the show tonight with the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak, and we are joined by Dan Thomas, FFPC, $30,000 career winner, and of course, a contestant in the Pros versus Joes. He will be one of the 36 Joes that will be representing the FFPC, taking on 36 industry pros. Coming up in 6 separate drafts that we will broadcast live on these airwaves coming up at the end of July. I believe it is the second and it's the penultimate weekend in July. And then, of course, the final weekend in July we'll be broadcasting this. You'll be around for all 6 of them this year, Dave.
You know, I was telling my daughter, Ella.
Yeah.
She's a bright young lady. How irritated I always get when you say the word penultimate all the time.
Right.
And then you say it all the time to irritate me, and you said it again.
I went on your daughter's blog, and you should see how many times that she's just littering the thing with the word penultimate. Just loves the word penultimate now. So
she should start using it, I guess.
Good for her. She's using some bulky words. Dan, let's talk about Football Guys draft strategy, because that's always a key component in drafting dominant teams. In your most recent Football Guys draft, you actually started running back, a throwback, as it were. You don't really see that.
No one does that.
Yeah, I mean, something that we saw, it was all the time, every team, 10 to 15 years ago, running back.
Mike Nazareth said you have to fit.
Yeah. And then we hear, Sean Siegel, zero RB strategy comes into vogue, 4 or 5 years ago. And last year, we saw a ton of players go with zero RB. Do you feel that those owners who ignore the possibilities of starting a draft running back, they're missing the boat with a shipload of value staring them in the face with those running backs? Or is this just a case of don't look at position that early on. Look at the value. Look at the players, regardless of position. Those are the guys you want to get.
Yeah, I think it's just value, because I've also drafted wide receivers. I think one of them I drafted 3 wide receivers to start, but it's just the value, whatever falls. At the turn, I had the 11th pick in one of those, and after the first 3 or 4 receivers, I'm not that comfortable drafting another one in the first round. And there's some good running backs there, I think. I like Melvin Gordon a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, well, talk a little bit about Melvin Gordon, because he's a guy that I want to like. Obviously, we're at least I am a Badgers fan up here in Northeast Wisconsin. Dave is ambiguous to his college football leanings, but I want to like Melvin Gordon this year, because he had such a rough rookie season, really rebounded last year, had a phenomenal season. I'm just worried about the touchdown dependency that his fantasy value was tied to in 2016. Can you set my mind at ease, Dan? Can you tell me that, listen, Melvin Gordon's going to have another double-digit touchdown season. He's going to put up a ton of yards. He's going to catch passes. No Danny Woodhead there. It's all going to be good for Melvin Gordon. Take him comfortably in the first round this year. Can you set my mind at ease?
Well, that's why I like him. I mean, Woodhead's gone. There's nobody behind him. Brandon Oliver, I think, is the backup there. So there's nobody behind him. I think the offense is going to be pretty wide open. They've got some receivers now after drafting Thomas. They should have pretty good depth as long as Allen's healthy. Field should be spread out a little bit. Gordon should have some room to run.
So we were talking about Shady McCoy a little bit earlier, and let's talk about his handcuff, Jonathan Williams. No one really talks about him, and he's probably pretty cheap to draft.
Very cheap.
What do you think? You think what does it say in the night? When is he undrafted, Buggy? What do you got in here?
Oh, Jonathan Williams ADP?
Yeah, it can't be that early.
No, it's fairly late. He's actually going 1406 in FFPC.
Round. What do you think? Is that a good pickup, even if you don't own Shady McCoy?
I think so, yeah. And I think I drafted him 14th round or the 12th round in one of those drafts I was in. But, yeah, he is standalone value. McCoy has a little bit of an injury history, so there's a chance he's going to do. When you're drafting this, in the bottom half of the draft right now, this early, there's so many questions with everybody. There's no telling who's going to be the breakout.
And that's totally right. And I'm just looking at some of the running backs going around Jonathan Williams right now. And you're obviously always looking for upside, especially when you hit those double-digit rounds. You're looking at guys like Jacquizz Rodgers, Dion Lewis, T.J. Yeldon, Charles Sims, Shane Vereen, Chris Thompson, Deontay Foreman, Marlon Mack. I mean, there's a lot of guys there that have some upside. But man, I think about Jonathan Williams and the fact that he's one twist of a knee or twist of an ankle or whatever it is away from assuming that starting running back role in Buffalo, and you get him in the 14th round. Even if I don't have LaShawn McCoy, he makes a lot of sense there for an upside pick, especially if you're drafting this early on in the season. It makes a lot of sense to get him on your squad. Dan, I do want to get to some listener emails here tonight that came in for you. The first, this is apropos because this is another Dolphins question. This is from Dale in Louisville, Kentucky. Do you think that Jarvis Landry is being penalized too much in drafts because he can't seem to find the end zone too often? Good luck in pros versus Joes. That's Dale in Louisville, Kentucky. Thank you for the email, Dale. So, Dan, you look at Jarvis Landry going at that 3-4 turn in FFPC drafts right now. So if you have the number one pick, you're probably looking at Landry when it comes back to you. At the 312. So you are not. If you have the turn the other way, if you have the final pick, you're looking at Jarvis Landry in the at that 3-4 turn. Do you think? I mean, that's appropriate for where he should be going because Landry catches a lot of passes, just doesn't see the end zone too much.
I think that's about where he should be going, really. I mean, and you got to go back to Tannehill, like for Parker. I mean, you're not sure Tannehill's going to be 100%. But
Tannehill's a guy too.
You've also got Parker there, and I think Julius Thomas could, as long as he's healthy. Don't anybody laugh, but as long as Julius Thomas is healthy, I think he could catch some balls this year.
Yeah, and we've heard the reports, and I think we might have a Jay Ajayi email coming up later on in the show, so I don't want to spoil it too much. But if Ajayi really is, looking better, catching the ball out of the backfield this year, that's going to be another weapon that is going to really help Ryan Tannehill in moving that Dolphins team down the field. And remember, Ajayi doesn't have to deal with Arian Foster this year. He's going to be the guy from the get-go. I think that'll be good. Get him in the right frame of mind. Starting from week one. Remember, he was like left behind on a flight to a game.
The first week he wasn't on the active roster. Yeah.
It's crazy to think about. He's going to be in a totally different place this year. So that again, the Dolphins offense, we talked a lot about it. We'll continue to talk a lot about it, especially once preseason gets going, because there's going to be a lot of interesting things to see, and it's going to affect draft boards as well. This is from Mark in St. Paul, Minnesota. Dan, who do you see yourself drafting more this year, Delaney Walker or Tyler Eifert? Thanks for the email. That is Mark in St. Paul, Minnesota. Thanks, Mark. Delaney Walker, Tyler Eifert. Which one are you siding with this year, Dan?
I'm not at all high on Walker. I just too many targets are going to go in a different direction. With Eric Decker, the rookie, I'm not that high on Walker. But Eifert, you got to worry about his health. But I like Eifert better.
Yeah, they're. I mean, again, that Bengals offense really switched what they're doing this year. They add John Ross, they add Joe Mixon. I don't want to say high powered, but they definitely have some speedier playmakers in focal points of the offense than they did last year. So that it's going to be interesting to see. And Delaney Walker, I mean, you have Eric Decker there now. They drafted Corey Davis. Dave I know you always make the point of every year I don't like Delaney Walker, and every year he somehow comes through and holds its value.
This is the year he's going to stop.
Maybe this is the year I mean, who knows? They got a lot of more capable pass catchers there than they've had in recent years.
No matter what, Football Guys probably has them ranked third or fourth.
Probably.
They always have them ranked super high.
Yeah, that's no doubt. Dan, we haven't really touched on this at all, but I do want to get into this. You were selected as a Joe in the 2017 Pros versus Joes contest, so that'll be very exciting. You'll be competing against 5 other Joes, 6 other pros in your individual 12-team league for a free FFPC main event team next year. You've been doing drafts already, so the whole where's this guy going to go? Where's this guy going to go? You have a pretty good handle on that. Is there any other strategy with these 28 round drafts, knowing that you're drafting against 5 other guys that have probably drafted in some FFPC sets, and then 6 pros who maybe don't know the format as well as the Joes, but definitely guys that are keeping up on the player value for their own personal leagues as well. What's the strategy for you in pros versus Joes this year?
I don't know that I have any different strategy than a regular draft. I just try to pick whoever falls. I like the rookie running backs this year. The rookie running backs, somebody's going to win a lot of money because they drafted a rookie in the 12th round. But as far as drafting for this, I don't really see drafting any differently than I would in an ordinary draft.
When you talk about the rookie running backs this year, are you specifically talking about, like the obvious ones, Fournette, McCaffrey, Cook, or guys that you can get at a value later on, Foreman or Mack or Wayne Gallman or anybody like that? I mean, is it just the class as a whole that you really like, or is it just top heavy?
I think the whole rookie class, this is the deepest rookie class since I'm not sure how long, but I like Joe Williams in San Francisco and Hunt in Kansas City. I think they're both in great situations if the right thing happens for them. You're going to get those guys 10, 11, 12.
All right. So Falky's been talking about his penultimate question.
Yeah.
And Wasp Guy over here is saying that the pre-anti-penultimate is the 4th before the end of the season.
Right.
And anti-penultimate is the 3rd.
Okay.
I'm going to ask the ultimate question. Is that okay? Can I just ask the ultimate?
This is the ultimate question.
The last question?
Yeah.
Jeez. All right. Give us an early round bust this year in FFPC leagues and a late round sleeper that you are trying to nab as many drafts as you can.
I am probably not going to have DeMarco Murray on any teams. I don't think he's going to do that well. I mean, I don't think he'll be a bust, but I'm probably not going to draft him anywhere. I'm not going to draft him as early as the 3rd round, and I think he's going that high, 2nd or 3rd round. Just think Henry's going to get a lot of work.
Henry's actually he creeped up in drafts earlier, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's a backup running back. Why is he going so early? He's actually fallen a little bit back down to the early 8th round, which to me is a little bit more sane. But yeah, I mean, the Murray pick makes sense. I mean, we're kind of waiting for the wheel to fall off, and he's already had some foot issues in his career, so maybe this is the year. I don't know. It definitely could be. What about a sleeper, Dan, for us that you can give away on the show? A guy that you're targeting.
I like Joe Williams, the running back in San Francisco. I think he's in a perfect situation. Carlos Hyde's never played a healthy season, and that's he just looks like he's in the right spot.
What about some of the press reports for that? Is that Matt Breida? Is that the guy, the undrafted free agent? They've been.
Oh yeah, Breida. Yeah. The big hawk.
So
yeah.
Who is? I did not understand what you said. I'm sorry.
The undrafted.
Okay, we're from Wisconsin.
It's the undrafted free agent that the Niners signed, Matt Breida. He apparently has also looked very, very good in that offense. But again, this is a guy I hadn't heard about till probably about a week ago. And all of a sudden,
a month ago, but anyway.
Well, okay, I didn't hear about him until like a week ago.
Well, maybe a few weeks.
Okay, whatever. Dan,
I'm just hearing about him.
He's obviously not on your radar. You're still locked into Joe Williams as a pretty good value in the 12th round.
Yeah, I think he is. It's funny drafting now. I mean, nobody's even put pads on yet, but looking at drafting rookies, but it's a good situation in San Francisco. But I did not hear about the other guy. I hadn't.
So so we just get it out there.
Right.
Matt Breida, he's 5'10", 181, according to whatever blurb this is. There's always inaccuracies.
Yeah.
On May 18th.
Oh wait, on this website he's 6'2", 240.
Exactly. May 18th there was an article with the title "Undrafted Running Back Matt Breida Turning Heads in San Francisco," and then 2 days ago, Matt Breida is showing speed in minicamp, which if you're 181, you might show some speed.
Especially if you're not wearing pads.
Again, 8.3 yards per carry at Georgia Southern. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Right, but 180 pounds isn't. So.
Yeah, he's not the workhorse.
Yeah, definitely
He's not the workhorse.
San Francisco's kicker weighs 180 pounds. So that's something.
Dramatico
yeah,
190.
He was he was a beefy guy. He couldn't fly like Matt Breida though. Listen, we have to fly right now.
Tim Hightower going there until the draft, but.
Yeah, Hightower is a guy that, you think about what he did for New Orleans. I still can't get over that. Just, an aging running back signed off the street, and then he ends up just crushing it in fantasy playoffs for the owners that started him. So it's a crazy game. You said yourself, Dan, you never know with football, and we know that we had a good time with you tonight. We certainly appreciate you joining us, giving us a little preview of what you've been doing already this season in drafts and what you plan on doing. And we'll get to watching your drafts live when we cover the Pros versus Joes. That'll be exciting as well. I want to wish you the best of luck in that league and all your leagues this year, man. It's so great to have you on, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. I'm looking forward to the draft. So
it will be. You bet, man. It will be a lot of fun listening to or watching because hopefully we'll have the draft board up of $30,000 FFPC winner Dan Thomas drafting his Pros versus Joes team coming up at the end of July. It's interesting when we were talking about the Niners running backs there. I don't want to make this a weekly thing, but I think it has. I was listening to the Football Guys Audible last night, and Cecil Lammy was in an experts draft on Wednesday night, and he was talking about it, what he did or whatever. And one of the guys in his draft actually selected Carlos Hyde, and Lammy, said to him, the Niners don't like him. And okay, that's fine. And then the guy's like, oh, and then he apparently texted some of his NFL insiders that, these experts, these industry experts. He texted them, and he's like, oh, yeah, you're right. Lammy's like, yeah, I know. I'm like, I don't have any insiders. I don't have any experts, Dave. I know they don't like him. I just like.
So the guys are after him, and just the experts are after
right? Yeah.
Get their hands up.
And then he had to text his NFL insiders like, hey, do the Niners really not like Hyde? Like, yeah. Have you gone on the internet? Have you opened a browser window?
It's like, just click. You put it in Google. There's this thing called Google.
Right.
You put it in there, and then you can click on the news feature, and then the news pops up.
Yeah. Just. About
the person that you put in there.
Yeah, and then there's shows like ours that mislead people, but that's a different conversation.
Let's play devil's advocate.
Okay.
Hyde a little bit.
All right.
So they don't like Hyde. They draft just Joe Williams, and Matt Breida, this shrimpy dude. He's not doing anything. He's 5'10", 181.
An UDFA.
Too small. So they're grooming Joe Williams. They love this Joe Williams, and it turns out he's still a rookie, and he doesn't know the playbook. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He can't block anyone for crap.
Yeah.
Guess who's left?
Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, probably. Maybe.
A guy who can block.
Maybe it's Hightower, but anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But no.
By the way.
Carlos Hyde is the guy that's left. I mean, maybe.
Well, hold
Hyde
on.
Is the guy.
There is one more. Do you remember who they traded for? I think was it during the draft or pre-draft?
Who's that?
Capri Bibbs. They got from Denver. So he's out there.
Yeah, there you go.
As you would say, farting around in Niners training camp.
Flipping around between second and fourth on the depth chart.
Right.
Week 3, all of a sudden it's like, Bibbs with the start.
Yeah.
Bibbs.
Yeah.
Bibbs, whatever the hell his name is.
Bibbs at the start next week. Cut. The week after, practice squad.
What happens? Bibbs gets to start next week. Hyde gets cut, and then Bibbs keeps his job.
Oh my God! Can you imagine?
I could totally imagine that.
You know what the sad thing is? I totally could too. I can also imagine that
make sure you stand for the anthem, Capri Bibbs, please.
All right, we don't have to get into that. We already had one Kaepernick reference.
You brought him up.
Yeah, and now you like subtweeted it live. You live subtweeted talking about Kaepernick. We're going to talk about much more, including your tweets and subtweets. Coming up right after this, I'm Eric Balkman. He's Dave Gerzak. This is the HSFF Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. The penultimate show we're doing in June here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
Everyone drink.
Chilling out.
Drinking game at home.
Chilling out on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Great interview from Dan Thomas. We'll look forward to his draft in the Pros versus Joes coming up at the end of the month. But before we get to that, we need to get to all of your calls, emails, tweets, whatever, coming up right here on Fantasy Feedback.
If you've got a
question for Eric Dave or tonight's guest, send them a tweet at HSFF Hour on Twitter. Email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. Post it in the chat room during the broadcast. Hashtag your tweet with HSFF or just smack Eric in the head. That's highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com or at HSFF Hour on Twitter.
You know, for as much as Joe Williams is being ballyhooed right now, you want to take a guess at what his ADP is?
12th?
1305.
Huh.
So slipping, apparently. You would expect a guy like that to be rising from the 12th. He's not.
I mean, the Breida hype is putting him down a little bit.
The Breida hype is real. Carlos Hyde's still at the 508.
508. People are still buying. Someone's buying early.
Mike,
all the chumps are buying early, but the chumps will turn into champs, and
yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, could definitely happen. Mike in Verdun, Illinois. I have a blind resume for you. I already know who this is, so I can't play, but Dave Gerzak can play.
What the hell is this?
You know, the thing we did.
Oh, yeah. All right, I have to figure out the player.
Yeah.
All right.
Here we go. I finished as the number 18 wide receiver last season.
Okay.
And returned to the same squad with the same quarterback.
Same. Okay.
Yet I am not being drafted until the 10th round as the 43rd receiver off the board. Who am I?
Thielen or Meredith?
It is not. Thielen was the last one.
Oh, yeah.
Not Meredith. You are in the wrong conference.
All right, so we got to go to the AFC.
AFC receiver. Number 18 last year. Not going until the 10th round of FFPC drafts this year.
Wow. Okay, so I like a little bit challenging. I have to actually think a little bit.
This was a guy that was not really drafted in 12-team leagues last year.
So he was picked up on waivers, I assume?
Picked up on waivers, or maybe drafted by shrewd owners or bought by shrewd owners in the Kentucky auction last year, and ended up starting.
I don't know who's in their stupid auction team.
No, it's fine. It's he just
I haven't been paying attention to it.
Helped us finish runner-up in that league. Whatever.
I love it. I love you bringing that up out of nowhere.
I'll give you a hint. This is an AFC West receiver. That was finished as number 18.
AFC West, so it's not Crabtree.
Not Crabtree. Wrong team. Okay. Not on the Raiders. Yeah.
All right, so it wasn't Tyreek Hill being drafted way early.
Wrong team.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So, let's see, we got it's not the Broncos.
Not the Broncos. Wrong team.
What team is left?
The Chargers are left. There's the only team.
Tyrell Williams?
Tyrell Williams.
He's really going that late.
That late.
In the 10th?
Yeah, in the 10th round.
That is so ridiculous. Mike Williams is like the ultimate super bust of the year. Oh, my goodness. It's so insane. He's not healthy. He wasn't healthy when he got drafted. The team screwed up in drafting him in the first place.
Okay.
Tyrell Williams, top 20 wide receiver, no doubt.
Yeah, number 18 last year. Okay.
For sure. He's going to start the whole season.
Okay.
Mike Williams has no competition whatsoever.
Okay.
And Keenan Allen will probably tear his ACL again.
Or, puncture some sort of life organ.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, Mike Williams, to play devil's advocate, not going to the 16-10. Okay, so Tyrell Williams is still being drafted well ahead of Mike Williams.
Right.
But you look at Keenan Allen, he is going at the 3-12.
Yeah.
So the end of the third, right in that Jarvis Landry range for somebody who's picking last. So, okay, if you want to do this, I would give you top 25.
Sure,
okay?
I'll take him.
So I will take Tyrell Williams not finishing in the top 25 this year for receivers.
I got 50 on it.
This is the 10?
10x bet. I'll put 5 on it.
All right, let's just do that for God's sake.
And you have kids, they don't have to pay for it. I don't want to take your money.
It's not that I don't mind the money aspect. I mind the aspect of, this could skew the whole I got 5 on it all season.
Yeah.
So you are certainly.
I am confident. I'm as confident in that one as that Mayweather knocks out Conor McGregor.
Wow. Man, you should have given me odds.
Lock it up, Falky.
Okay. All right, moving on. We have another email here. Actually, we have several emails to get to, and not a lot of time to do it. Dear Vince and Eddie, are you a fan of Eric Decker's landing spot in Nashville? How does his and Corey Davis value change now? Go Titans. Frank in Kingsport, Tennessee. Thank you for the email, Frank.
Now, Bucky, you had a little rant you were going on at the office the other day about this Corey Davis-Decker thing.
Yeah.
Give me the rant. Tell me what happened.
Well, okay. So, as you know, our producer runs our HSFF Hour Twitter account. And, I probably honestly should not, I should know what is being tweeted out there more than I actually do.
You're big time now.
Well, no, I mean, like, I'm saying, like, not on Twitter in general. I'm just saying, like, I should know what the show I host is tweet. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so I happened to see there was a tweet, and I don't have it up, but basically what it was something to the effect of Corey Davis. All these Corey Davis people are going to be disappointed now that Eric Decker's in town. Like, you can't be super excited about Davis anymore. And, somebody replied, like, I think this actually helps Corey Davis's value this year, which I don't understand. And then, of course, Tupacker comes on and said, yeah, this doesn't hurt his value. And I think, honestly,
it was a little more dynasty type.
Maybe that's the way they took it.
Right.
Now, I certainly don't think Eric Decker affects Corey Davis's dynasty stock one iota.
Right.
Okay? But for this year, I mean, if you think that Corey Davis is somehow going to put up bigger numbers with Eric Decker in town than he would have without Eric Decker. If you somehow think that Corey Davis should, oh my God, Eric Decker's there now,
it frees him up.
We got to bump Corey Davis up on. Listen, if you think that, I can't help you. There's just whatever. I have nothing to say to that. This does hurt him this year. Okay. Maybe it's not a huge dent. Maybe it's only a little bump down. But I can't believe that Corey Davis's 2017 redraft value is in a better place now with Decker around.
Well, you have to keep in mind, Delaney Walker's still there. So it's like, where in the pecking order does Corey Davis fall even?
Yeah.
He could be third.
Is the fact that Tennessee gave
Rashard Matthews.
Right, they gave him all that money. I mean, not all that money, but they gave him a significant amount of money last year.
Speaking of receivers that finished in the top 20-something, where did Rashard Matthews?
I don't know where he finished.
He was right up. He was up in there. Go ahead.
Okay, how about you look it up because I have something to say about Matthews. Actually, I don't have something to say. I have a question to ask you about Matthews. Does the fact that Tennessee paid him in free agency last year and they bring him aboard and now he's in the second year of that deal, does that have any kind of impact on this, knowing that Tennessee used the 5th overall pick on a receiver, knowing that they paid, again, they didn't pay Eric Decker a ton of money, but they're bringing him in. Does Matthews' contract, is that a sunk cost at this point, or is that still impactful as we look at his role in this Titans receiving core this year? And again, I'm not asking for a factual thing. I'm asking for your opinion here.
I don't know. I think that they're probably not going to, because he's already has the contract. I don't think they're going to use that too much in evaluating whether he's going to play or not. I'm guessing that they're just going to really go by who's showing the most talent, who's going to help them win. Like more of a true what you should be doing type of thing.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my guess.
As far as receivers go, Matthews did have. By the way, Matthews also on the Kentucky runner-up auction team for me and Kurt last year.
Rashard Matthews. He was the number 20 wide receiver last year. 20 overall. Not the number 20.
I have a question.
Not number 20 and some other stat.
How terrible was our team in Kentucky last year that we get David Johnson and we get Tyrell Williams essentially for free, Rashard Matthews essentially for free, and we don't win the whole thing?
What is this, in the auction?
Yeah, in Kentucky auction.
Oh, by the way, it was a 14-team auction,
which
means it should have been even easier.
Yes. I know. How did this?
You did 6 seconds. That's pretty good.
That's good. You know what sucked? You know who our starting tight end was? Kobe Fleener.
And there you go. There's your answer.
And you remember you and Kurt stepped away from the table, and then you came back and Kurt's like,
get a drink and
Kurt's like, oh, Balks, how's our team doing? I'm like, oh, I got some Fleener insurance and Antonio Gates. Kurt just did the face palm to the.
Yeah.
So he was upset about that. Okay, so let's actually answer this guy's email. Decker, you like his spot in Tennessee?
Not particularly.
Really? I kind of do.
I mean, it's okay. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much confidence I have in Decker coming back off the injury.
And just to give you their AD, well, I'm not going to tell you. You guess. I'll give you a hint. Eric Decker and Corey.
This is after the post.
Well, this is most of it.
Delayed stats.
Yeah, I mean, again, we haven't had a ton of draft.
Decker 9th round.
Both in the 9th round. He and Davis. Corey Davis 909, Eric Decker 912. Now, do you expect Decker to rise above Davis?
I would think so.
And you would rather have Decker than Davis this year?
I would rather have Decker than Davis. He's proven he's got the talent. Where is interestingly enough, you don't know where Rashard Matthews is going. He's probably going
I can take. Is he even going?
He's got to be going.
Well, yeah. I mean, I meant that a little facetiously. 11-10. So actually, not that much later.
Okay.
And we don't care about Taywan Taylor, right?
From a dynasty perspective,
No, from redraft perspective.
So, so let's look at the football guys' depth chart right now.
Yeah.
Number 1 on their depth chart, Rashard Matthews. Number 2, Eric Decker. Number 3, Corey Davis. Number 4, Tywan Taylor. That very well could change. You'd expect it to change because he was such an early draft.
Right. Yeah.
But interesting.
Hey, Dave and Balky, unlike last year, we know that Golden Tate is the Lions receiver to own. But is there any value in targeting Marvin Jones later as well? That is Paul in Los Angeles. La La Land.
Let me give you a quick answer on that. Marvin Jones screwed me last year, so I'm not taking him this year.
See,
I'm holding a grudge against Marvin Jones.
Don't you think that's a mistake?
No.
That's a mistake that fantasy owners make.
I know that, but in this case, I don't usually do it. But in this case, I'm doing it.
Okay, but
he had one good game,
hold on.
4 for 107.
Right.
And
he had a couple of good games.
The rest were terrible.
Do you think if you would not have owned Marvin Jones last year, you would still be off him this year? You would still be like, you know what? No. He's not going to be a guy I'm going to look at.
No, maybe I would look at him.
Okay.
So it's solely because I own him.
He's going at the 10.08 right now.
Yeah, way too high.
Now, the problem with going at the 10.08, Dave, I don't necessarily have a problem with that value right there. As far as, paying that price to get Marvin Jones on my team. But you look at the other guys that are going in the 10th round. The aforementioned Tyrell Williams. Adam Thielen also going there. Corey Coleman, Jordan Matthews.
Oh, man, that's juicy. Those guys are all good.
Mike Wallace, your guy.
Yeah.
Kenny Britt, my guy.
Corey Coleman's like the number 1 wide receiver in Cleveland.
Rashard Matthews.
Yeah.
Quincy Enunwa. I mean, these are all guys that
guys I'm acquiring off your teams.
Yeah, exactly. These are all guys that I'd be more excited about drafting than Marvin Jones. I saw him disappear too much, and I don't see the offense changing. And you know what? Honestly, they give Marvin Jones all that money. He doesn't perform. Don't you want to hear puff pieces about Marvin Jones? Don't you want to hear the coaches raving about him in year 2? Oh, he didn't know the system. It was his first year. He didn't have enough time to build chemistry with Stafford. You want to hear these excuses if you want to draft Jones. I'm not hearing any of this.
Let me ask you a question about Marvin Jones. How many games did he have where he scored more than 14 fantasy points in PPR?
I'll say 2.
Wrong, 1.
Oh, my goodness.
1 game, 6 for 205, 2 touchdowns against the hapless Packers defense.
Yeah.
So
Green Bay hapless.
Hapless, terrible. So, I mean, it's like, these are all terrible performances.
Right.
He has 1 good game. Hey, sucks. He sucks.
Yeah.
He wasn't even that good coming before he came over.
I never really understood because, Mohamed Sanu and Marvin Jones both left the Bengals last year in free agency, and they both got paid a lot of money. I never understood, oh my goodness, this is you gotta like Sanu this year. You gotta like Jones. I never really thought they were all that great in Cincinnati. So why all of a sudden would they be great in Atlanta and great in Detroit?
Let's look back on Marvin Jones.
I didn't have Sanu on any team last year.
Marvin Jones came out of Cal. He was drafted in round 5 with the 31st pick in the round, almost around a 6th-round player.
Yeah.
He has had his highest yardage season was 950 or 930 yards last year. And he had that one season in 2013 where it was a statistical anomaly where he caught 10 touchdowns. I think he caught 3 in 1 game, right?
Yeah.
So he's just been a luck shot guy his whole career. He's not even
luck
that good.
Shot.
He sucks.
I like that.
Don't draft. I'm not taking him.
He's a luck shot guy. This is a luck shot podcast.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
You know what? I'm glad we discussed this because I'm even more off Marvin Jones.
Okay, let me ask you this.
3 minutes of research. I'm even more off Marvin Jones.
Okay, that's fine that you're off him. Okay, so you're not taking Marvin Jones in the 10th round. Does this make you? Does the fact that you are much further down on Marvin Jones than other people, other drafters, does that make you higher on Golden Tate, going at the 410 right now?
Not necessarily. I don't really love Golden Tate that much. I mean, I really don't.
Yeah.
I would consider him in that area, but I wouldn't.
I'll tell you why you won't.
I wouldn't leap to the 404 because I'd be taking Tyreek Hill before.
I was just going to say, who the receiver that's going right before him is Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. Of course.
And who's going right after him, by the way? Terrell Pryor, a guy that you bet 5 on it last week.
I don't know. I'm not sure about Tate versus Pryor yet.
Okay. Moving on. Mike in Lexington, North Carolina. Is Danny Woodhead being underrated in the FFPC again? He's on a new team, coming on. He writes coming on an ACL. I think he's coming off an ACL. Hopefully he's not coming on an ACL. Coming off an ACL. And
we've reached the R-rated part of the show.
And his now you made it R-rated. And his new teammate Macklin is going to be getting a lot of targets, but Woodhead was the number 2 running back in 2015. Thanks, gents. That's Mike in Lexington, North Carolina. Thanks for the email, Mike. I'm kind of with him. Danny Woodhead, we saw reports again this week that Flacco's throwing to him a ton. He was heavily involved in the passing game that the media got to see in OTAs and everything. I think that Woodhead is a guy, again, especially if you go zero RB. 704.
All right.
Yes, I will take him happily as my second running back at the 704. You could even, honestly, Dave, you know what you could do? Take a stud running back in the first round, one of the top three, or McCoy or Gordon, and then pound receivers and maybe tight ends. You get 4 receivers in there. You get a tight end in there. And you take Danny Woodhead as your second running back. There's a lot worse ways to build a team than having Woodhead as your second running back.
Well, and you look at the rest of the running backs on that team, and they can never.
Terrence West.
They don't know. They don't know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
The
Kenneth Dixon suspended to start the season.
Yeah, they don't exactly. They don't
Maybe Woodhead gets off to that fast start that everybody always craves.
You know what I agree with you actually.
Preaching to the converted.
You know what? I am converted. I hadn't really thought a whole lot about Woodhead. I'm on board with that.
Chris in Smyrna, Georgia.
32 though. He's old. Out of Shadron State.
Okay, yeah,
Where's Shadron State? I'll give you $5 if you tell me.
God, I don't know.
Guess.
Kentucky.
All right, I'm gonna go.
I don't know why. I guess either Kentucky or Georgia. I don't know why I thought those two, or maybe Washington. Now I'm just randomly naming states. Shadron.
Yep.
Shadron.
That's Shadron, whatever.
Yeah, where is it?
Nebraska.
Oh, that was close. It was in the United States.
They have a graduation rate of 34.7%.
Yikes. Doesn't speak well for Danny Woodhead's post-NFL career.
Academics, not a strength.
Yeah. But churning out pass-catching running backs that you can get at a value in the FFPC, a strength.
Good for him. You know what? I like that.
Chris in Smyrna, Georgia. Maybe that's why I was thinking Georgia. We all know how bulky feels, but is Dave also looking at drafting Martavis Bryant this year after Big Ben said he looks like a stud again? Thanks for the email, Chris. This came out earlier this week. Somebody asked Big Ben, what about Martavis Bryant? He's like, oh, he looks like a stud. Looks like a stud, Dave. You cannot fight. Come over to the dark side.
You want the dark side. Yeah. Where's he being drafted?
Take a guess.
5'10".
5'10". Where would you be comfortable taking him?
All right. 7'10".
He goes at the 607, so split the difference.
Yeah,
that's where he's going right now. So
I'm actually pretty happy with my guesses lately.
Dave, listen, you're dialed in, man. It's like you're commissioning these drafts, but you're really not. Yeah. So Martavis Bryant at the 607. Again, this is a guy that we saw the upside already. The thing that I'm worried about, I know he's rocked up. It seems like he's got his head on straight, but even when these guys have their heads on straight, it seems like one slip up and boom, you might never come back to the NFL. Because that's where we're at with Bryant right now. As much as I want to make him my boy this year, I'm still trying to trade him in Dynasty. I feel like this is like I'm constantly walking on broken glass with Bryant, and it's just going to be like that one little slip, and it's going to slice my foot open, and I'm going to bleed to death.
So no, they're not talking about Juju Smith-Schuster or anything yet.
No, he's been talked up.
Has he?
Yeah, JJSS.
Yeah, I don't know. 607 maybe. I guess
Antonio Brown is going to get a ton of catches. Le'Veon Bell is going to get a ton of catches.
Yeah, he's not going to ever be the primary or even secondary playmaker on the team. So it's just really tough for him to return. 607. It's not super expensive, but he has to do well to return value there.
Okay, let's just do a mini would you rather here. Sure. These are all guys going after Martavis Bryant. Okay. Brandon Marshall.
I'll take Marshall.
I would rather have Bryant. Kelvin Benjamin.
I'll take Benjamin though.
Really? I would take Bryant in that case.
He's a primary receiver and he's lost that weight.
Yeah, that is true.
His Chubb is going.
Did you hear, by the way, anymore. Ron Rivera's like, he didn't weigh 280, but maybe 270. I mean, something to that effect. Bryant or Crowder?
You're trying to get me going on Crowder. I'm going to take Crowder.
Yeah, Jay Gruden was gushing about him again this week. I agree with you there. And then Bryant or Parker?
I'll take Bryant.
I would too. And then last one, I know which way you're going to say. Martavis Bryant or Dante Moncrief?
I hate Moncrief.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so Bryant. I mean, I don't hate Moncrief, but I'd rather Bryant. We got to fly here in these last couple emails. Hi, guys. Any faith in Todd Gurley having a bounce-back 2017 with a young, modern offensive mind running things as opposed to Jeff Fisher? Thanks in advance. That's Don in Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania. How about that? So Gurley, you on board with him? Because he's slipping in drafts.
Where's he at?
210 right now.
Yeah, I'm on board with it.
Yeah, going at the end. Now, he's a guy, if you're drafting at the start of the draft, you can actually get him. You could start off your draft with Ezekiel Elliott and Todd Gurley. That's not a bad way to start.
Yes, I mean, you look at teams where you're uncomfortable with changes and how it's bad. Well, if the guy sucked last year, you're comfortable with changes. I mean, there's a good chance that he might actually do better.
You would not be comfortable drafting Todd Gurley if Jeff Fisher was still the coach, if the quarterback was still, whoever was I don't even know who was starting before Goff last year.
Keenum, wasn't it?
Yeah, Case Keenum or whoever it was. If Kenny Britt was still the number one receiver, I mean, there's just a lot of.
I couldn't stand Fisher, and now here it is the following year. I still have to hear his name.
Yeah, sorry.
So annoying.
Final email. Hello, HSFF Hour. Now that we know Jeremy Maclin tore his groin last season and tried to play through it, do you think him signing with the Ravens will be more like Steve Smith with the Ravens or Andre Johnson with the Colts? That is John in New York. I feel like he's going to be closer to Steve Smith Ravens. Ain't nobody as bad as Andre Johnson was with the Colts.
All right, what was the question?
Well, Maclin being this, 10th year in the NFL, late career move to a new team. Is he going to be more like Steve Smith was with Baltimore or Andre Johnson was with Indianapolis?
More like Icon.
I agree, and I think that
he won't be as good though.
No, he won't be as good, but he's much closer to that. And I think that Maclin's going to be a guy that we're going to see. He's going to be that rare veteran that I think actually rises upwards before he starts falling again.
Sure. So, I'm on board.
All right, you are on board, and I'm on board with ending the show on that note, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank tonight's guest, Dan Thomas. Treat to have one of the Joes on before the Pros versus Joes draft start up in a few weeks here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football. I want to thank Dave Gerzak, the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and, of course, all of you. I want to remind you to make your Planet Hollywood reservations now. Sign up for the main event. Make sure you're not getting left out. If you want to draft live, make sure you book that trip. Draft with us live. It's going to be great. Dave is going to be out there. And I know that's not a great selling point, but trust me, he's a lot of fun in Vegas. Much more fun than he is on this show.
Whatever, dude.
Sign up for the main event. Draft now with all those satellites and Dynasty startups we have. As I mentioned early on in the show, no Dave next week, but lucky us, Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship Commissioner Farrell Elliott will co-host with me. He is the co-host of the Kentucky Fantasy Football Podcast as well. He will co-host with me next week. That will be a great show. Scott Engel and the Fantasy Hall of Fame Hour is up next. If you are listening to the Fantasy Sports Radio Network, we certainly appreciate you hanging out with us tonight, and your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Him again, the sound the engine in is like a bird. You see fireworks and Corvette tires skirt the boulevard. I know how you work, I know just who you are. See, use a bitch, your hormones probably switch inside your DNA.
Yeah, I just realized you're going to be an audience member next week. You won't be on the show. Do you have any questions for Farrell that you'd like to lob his way? Any softballs you want to toss him? Doesn't have to be about fantasy football either.
Yeah, not yet, but I'll find something.
Yeah, try to find something in the music industry. I think this is an unexplored thing that we need to discuss.
How come he doesn't have any rap acts?
Great question.
Well, yeah,
we'll talk about why Farrell apparently does not represent enough hip-hop artists. All that and more next week on the HSFF Hour.
With hundreds of specials at Macy's, it's definitely time to shop. Hurry in for the best selection on incredible specials for you, your family, and your home. Men's designer suits and separates, 65% off. A great collection of shoes for her, 40 to 50% off. Home specials like comforters, 60% off. Plus, use your Macy's card or savings pass and take an extra 20 or 15% off. Excludes specials. It's time to shop right now at Macy's. Exclusions apply, savings off sale prices.